I'm Matt Martelli. This is the Off-Road Racer Podcast, and I'm here with my good friend Jason Coleman. What's up, man? Thanks for making it down.
Yeah, I'm glad we could finally do this. This is awesome. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, it's not too far of a trip from Huntington for you, but still a little traffic to deal with, I'm sure.
No, it's great to get out of Orange County for a bit and check out something else.
Yeah, no, totally. Now, we were just talking, and, you're from Huntington original, so how'd you, get into this? You're not a surfer, right?
No.
We established that. You're more of a river and desert guy. Like, where did it start for you in off-road?
Yeah, well, it goes back a long ways. My dad started going to the races, helping Ivan Stewart. So he was around PPI. His best friend from high school was really good friends with Cal Wells. And so they got together and started going to the races and were pit supporting before I was alive, and tons of crazy stories of all that stuff. So I grew up as a kid knowing about Ivan Stewart and trophy trucks.
Right.
And so I always wanted to race trophy trucks. And then my dad's other really good friend from junior high, Steve Bishop, was a 1600 buggy racer. Raced a bunch of desert stuff and did a lot of short course. He actually worked for my dad as a superintendent, and they were really, really close. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was 14. And it was one of those things where it led to the conversation, like, Dad, I want to get his race car. Like, I want to race, And to back up a little bit, my dad had left supporting PPI and stuff to run his business and build that. He just didn't have the time commitment anymore. So about that time, so I was entering high school, wanted to get around racing, and Terrible Herps Motorsports was down the street from my high school there in Huntington Beach with Mike Smith Fab. And I walked in. Actually, he forced me to go in by myself. I was so nervous. We sat in the car and argued for 45 minutes whether I could, he would go in with me. And finally, I got enough courage, walked in and talked to the guys and said, hey, I'd love to volunteer. I don't know anything. And so that led to all through high school. I was around that and just was enamored from the beginning of this is so cool. So really my early days was being a shop kid and sweeping the floors and dumping the trash can and cleaning CVs, because that was about the time they literally just debuted the 4-wheel drive that time.
Yeah.
So this was 2000. And one thing led to another, and just always had this like fix to want to get to racing. I just always liked it. I mean, if we were at the go-kart track locally, the Family Fun Center, it was serious to me. And I don't think anybody else thought that, but I did. I always wanted to race. Loved it. Yeah.
Totally. Well, so when you were first getting introduced by your dad to off-road racing as a fan, right? Did you get to see the kind of behind the scenes of PPI?
Unfortunately, I was so young, I don't remember much of it. I have vague memories of going down and checking it out. Just lots of stories, of course. There's pictures of me. My first Baja race, I was 2 years old, and my dad took me down with a bucket of chicken and his buddy, and we were in the middle of nowhere. I have some photos and just kind of some vague memories, but unfortunately, I didn't get to see like it in its glory days. But of course, you know a lot about it and how cool it was.
But to be a part of to be interior of the Herps shop, when they were going through, like, that was kind of their, I wouldn't say it's their heyday, because they're doing very well now, as 19 Industries now, the evolution of it. But like, man, they had some balls to take, what they had created with because at that time, the Land Shark was already out, already dominating, and they had made the decision to go to a 4-wheel drive trophy truck, which was like crazy, because it like no factory support. So it was going to be all their money. It was going to be, Mike Smith's ideas implemented. And, it's not like it is now where you can go buy hub assemblies and all the parts and build one from existing parts. Everything had to be created.
Yeah, it was really cool. They would bring in so many experts from around the world from different types of motorsport, guys from Dakar and just different places and stuff. And so like you just see, and it's a philosophy I think that trained me on, one, how to put my race team together, but also just in my business is just surround yourself with experts. And they did a really good job of that. And they still do, of course, but back then, like you say, it was quite different, not as much experience in 4-wheel drive and stuff. And there wasn't the amount of people running it and the parts available. So, they machined everything, and we would go on multi-day tests a lot, and they were very, very committed. And it was pretty cool to watch that and see it grow. And I think they were successful with that truck for what it was. Obviously quite heavy and limited wheel travel in the front, but for me, obviously, I still respect them as one of the early guys with the 4-wheel drive stuff.
Oh yeah, they the Herps and Mike Smith it contributed so much to the evolution of technology and racing, with all the different vehicle platforms they pioneered, including the one you drive today, which is, their spec truck.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's such a crazy story. I mean, I was a kid, I volunteered, and then I was making minimum wage sweeping floors, and didn't have any money, and just to literally fast forward 20 years later, here I'm walking in saying, yeah, I think I want to buy one of your spec trucks. It's a really cool full circle for me. And on piggyback on that, a couple of years ago, they called me and asked me to race the 1,000 with the boys. And so if you would have told me that when I was a kid in high school, I would have been like, you're crazy. Those opportunities didn't happen. And so, I had to go forge my own career to get that opportunity. And it's really awesome. So I owe a lot to the Herbst family for giving me a start in this sport, even though it was sweeping floors, it wasn't driving, but lots of hours and years of being around them led to how we do our race efforts today.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of people that have started in this industry, both on the manufacturing side, and as well as various businesses, wheel companies, etc., and racers who start out sweeping a floor at a shop. I think that's one thing I hope kids that listen to this take away is like, right now when you don't have any overhead and you live with your parents, whatever age you are, go do it. Go learn, right? Go sweep, humble yourself and go in there and volunteer to sweep the shop and, just become a part of it. You never know where it's going to lead to.
Yeah, I've joked for years I was going to write a book, A Kid in a Broom or something, because both in the construction company that my family started and the racing, I started with a broom, and I still, it's pretty dang rewarding to sweep a floor. I mean, there's a lot of things that you do in life that doesn't have instant gratification, but sweeping up a construction site or a race shop, you can step back and be like, all right, it's clean, it's good. So there's a lot to be built on that.
Well, you just didn't jump right into spec trucks. Like you've paid your dues, you've come up the ladder system. Like, what was your first, race experience or,
Yeah. So, there's a couple moments in my life. I think God put me right where I needed to be. Kind of long story short, I met was now my brother-in-law, my father-in-law at Bondurant driving school out of high school. We both randomly got gifted from our parents to go to driving school that summer after high school. And we met there that week, and they already had a Class 10 team. And so we're both 18. Being with the Herps was great, but I was 15 when I started with them. And, if they would go celebrate a win or whatever, I'm not going to the bar. I'm not all right, see you guys later.
Right.
So I was around, but it wasn't like you were part of it. So now I met someone my age that was driving. And so we had an instant bond. And so I went to the races a lot of years with them. And that 2004 rode my first Baja 1000 with them as a navigator, and raced with them for 4 or 5 years, and then finally saved up enough money and I was like, I bought my first chassis, not even a rolling chassis, just a chassis from Krieger, and started trying to piece it together and ran short a little on some money. So back then there's Collins Motorsports, his kid Brian Collins, we talked and teamed up and partnered up and finished the car and raced it for a season. And that was kind of the start of it with 1,600 cars, and raced that for 6 years straight, just every single snow race. And it was 30 something races straight. It was a lot.
And then that era was a really competitive area for 16 cars.
Yeah, I was racing Rob Mac. It was the first time I rolled.
Bummer. That's such a bummer. You're racing 16 cars, and I remember that era because Rob wanted, he was kind of not in between, but he was racing short course stuff, and then would race a little bit with Riviera, but he was racing a lot of 16 car races. So you show up to a 16 car race and you're like, all right, this is gonna be badass. And then Rob Mac lines up next to you and you're like,
totally.
Oh man.
No, the first time I rolled was, Rob comes up to me in Caliente, bumps me okay, fine. It's Rob Mac. I'm like, all right, I'm going to show him. I'm going to hang with him. I'm going to learn something. 2 turns later, all of a sudden, boop, over. And I'm like, all right, well, cool. That was awesome. So I had quite a humble pie there, but, yeah, it was tough. There was a lot of really, really fast guys that I respected. And so when we were deciding 16, 10, whatever, my dad's like, you've been in 10, let's race 10. I'm like, no, I didn't. I never raced a class that I couldn't spend the money right. I didn't want to be out budgeted, because racing, I don't care if we're racing lawnmowers. We're going to hone the pistons and do all the crazy stuff. It's going to get expensive. It doesn't matter what limitations there are. So I wanted to start in 16. I know Rob and those guys, they all started right there. And so I felt like if I'm going to do this sport right, I'm going to start where you should and learn momentum and all that. And it was awesome. So a couple championships and one Baja 500 and with CJ actually, which was rad. Just had a lot of fun. Still have that car today, actually. Thought I'd never sell it, and I've kind of listed it a couple times just because I'm like, it's just sitting in the garage and collecting dust, and it's time it needs to go to a new home. But I love 16. It's still got a special place in my heart.
Do you think that experience of learning how to drive a momentum car made you a better driver in spec truck now?
Absolutely. I mean, I think anything like then from there we step to class 10. It's the same thing. Your limited motor. But even in trophy truck, I mean, I think there's a lot of reliance on so much horsepower now, obviously all-wheel drive, that, you know, you can hit the brakes and you're back to high speeds, where if you can use that momentum, you know, you're going to look at Luke. And I mean, Luke and I raced heads up in 16 for a couple of years too. And Rob and all these guys like Cameron Steele, like you take some of those principles and you can apply it to trophy truck, you're going to be faster. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you're racing 16. You did that for, you said 6 years?
It was like 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And still riding with CJ and Mark, and did class 10. And they got a class 1 car. And then I think it was like 2012 or something, I decided to slow down and figure out what was next. So I ended up getting a Jimco class 10 car, and took a while to build that and put that together. And because at the time, I don't think spec had taken off yet.
No, that was pre. Because that was actually when John Marking was still at Jimco, right?
No,
it was around that same. Maybe he'd left to go do Fox.
No, I dealt with Julson, and I had a great experience and met a lot of great people. You know, and it was really between Alumacraft and Jimco, and I went with the Jimco, and it was a solid car, but you know, struggle. I didn't have as good of a record, so I mean, I really sat there wondering, I mean, am I still good at this?
Right.
So the results weren't what we used to do in the 16.
Was that hard? I mean, like you start getting really good in 16. You're like, okay, I'm one of the top guys. Then you move up a class and you're almost back to square one.
Yeah. And like I said, I think there was some geometry stuff, and, you know, the wheel travel, like I would just get eaten up in the rough, and I spent tons of time testing and just could never really get it where I wanted. And, so yeah, we struggled with that car, and again, a lot of really good things were a lot positive. It was a great car on the roads,
but they were known. I mean, those Jimcos, the 10s in particular, were known for being durable more than they were fast, right?
Oh, it's super durable. Yeah, you could pound it. Like that was never a problem. It was 6-speed. It was a really fun car to drive. Just, you know, for one reason or another, struggle, and it got to a point where we did that 16 with guys in the shop on the weekends and nights. Like we were prepping, and then it was getting like, okay, we were racing Best in Desert at the time. It was pretty popular, and they were bigger efforts, you know, and not qualifying much then, but just bigger races, more efforts to get there. So it just kind of became where it needed more attention, and our guys, myself, and then some of our guys are getting more established in their careers, and so it started getting too much.
Sure.
So then 2017, I got approached for an opportunity to race with Stronghold in their trophy truck.
Yep.
And so we put my stuff on hold and went and did that for a year. And that was a super cool experience. You know, first kind of taste of trucks. I had a great time. Those guys were really awesome to work with Johnny Nelson. I mean, one of the best in the industry.
Johnny's a G, dude.
Yeah.
Well, and the Baileys are great people. Like Scott Bailey has helped so many people, you know, start their careers, extend their careers. He helps us with the Mint, with equipment every year. I mean, he's like one of these guys in the industry that if you know how much he does for everybody, you know, but most people don't, you know?
Yeah. No, they were super good to me. Had a wonderful experience, and I look up to those guys that, you know, obviously in business, and I'm like, I told them from the start, I'm like, look, the racing thing's cool, but I want to learn a little bit about business from you, you know, because they're very successful. And so, yeah, that was a fun, crazy year. And then that came to an end after the 1,000, and sat around for a little bit and got a call to race a spec truck. A guy who wanted to kind of build a team, and so I was like, all right, cool, let's do this, and tried it out, raced Vegas Reno, and finished third. And the guy was elated. Super cool guy out of Texas. That truck hadn't finished, I think, he'd crashed it and some other people had crashed it before. So like, it was just, they had such an awesome experience. And that quickly kind of fizzled for a couple different reasons. So I was sitting around, and then I went and I raced the Mint in Class 1 with CJ and did well. I think we finished third. And so that was it's been a rough race for them over the years. And so they finally, to get a podium, they were a big General Tire deal back then.
Yep.
And we had a great time. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to race again. Because I'd sold my 10 car and I was sitting around. And one thing led to another. Walked into Herps and built a truck. And now it's been 5 or 6 years of truck racing.
Was that, making that jump? I mean, obviously there's a financial aspect to it, but also like, I think it's harder, and you tell me, when you're doing it with somebody else and you're like, oh, cool, I'll try this. It's not a big expense, not a big risk to you. But once you write the check yourself and you're like, I'm doing this, was that a big jump for you?
Yeah, it's actually funny. I figured there would be like a long line over there, and I walked up and Herps had a truck being built for Tim or something. And Tim was like, oh, you can have that chassis. And so I went from thinking, I'll be like, a year out or whatever, I'll put the funds together. And then it's like, I think we had a truck on the ground in, 12 weeks or something. It was really
Crazy.
fast. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to write some checks.
Yeah.
But yeah, but back then the class hadn't
Blown up yet. Yeah.
done what it did now. We were still on the 37s. We had the 425. So unfortunately, I only raced one race, and then I had to change all that stuff. So that was a lost investment. But it was kind of on the cusp of what it became now. And you didn't need a second identical truck for pre-running, and just the level of like the game changed so much in the last 5 years. So I joke that if I would have known that now, I don't know if I would have jumped into it. But it's
become the new trophy truck, cost wise, right?
Yeah, it's not cheap. Fortunately, we've had a lot of great sponsors and partners that have helped us get along, but it's a lot. And you chase these sponsor deals, and it gets you to the level where like you're not going to the small shows anymore. Like we go to all the big shows. It's either the Mexico stuff, or the Mints and the Hammers and the Vegas Street. Like they're all big show races, and so it's just, I'm the type of guy. I'm racing to win. I always have said that.
Sure. I
know there's a lot of guys that are happy with the fifth. I'm not happy with second or third. Like it just bums me out because I start counting. Like what if I did this? Because it's too much effort and time away from my family to not try to win.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It turned into a lot, but it's pretty rad when it all works.
Yeah, I mean, you've had some wins, some 3-time championships, or 3 championships, 2 Baja 1000s, 3 Vegas to Reno wins, San Felipe win, second at KOH. The Mint's been a tough one for you, but you had a good run this year.
Yeah, 2 years in a row at the Mint, we're contending on time, and last year was a mechanical failure, and this year I've got frustrated and went for a pass I shouldn't have done. It was a really kind of just not characteristic of me to be impatient as I was, but I was chasing this guy for 40 miles, and I wanted to make it known I was there, and I wanted him to move. And it didn't work out for me, and ended up spinning the truck and kick flipped it, and it punctured the fuel cell. Otherwise, if it wasn't for that, I drove to the pit and thought I was going to keep going. But it crushed the fuel cell in the neck filler, and it punctured it. So, we were out, but,
that was such a bummer too. Cause I remember we were doing the live stream, and we'd been talking about you quite a bit, and about, you were due, like here it is, it's unfolding. Right. And then that happened, and we're just like, what a heartbreaker.
Well, it was, last year we went to King Hammers. I got a flat right off the start. And so it was such a short, 180 mile sprint that we never really could make up the time. But we're like, man, the truck worked so good.
Yeah.
And then we went to the Mint and the same thing. And then I'm rewatching the live feed after the race, and I'm like, oh shoot, we were on time with Kyle.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time in the truck. And I'm like, shoot, we've got something here. And so, we've evolved that setup a little bit, and I call it my smash setup, because it's between the Mint and the Hammers. I mean, those are the roughest, fastest races, I think. And you could argue San Felipe too, but after that, it gets a little smoother the rest of the year. But we have a setup that we were very, very happy with. And I mean, it eats guys up. Like, and so again, back there, and you can watch the live thing again, and just we're right there on time with these guys.
Yeah.
And so I love that. It's a Mint 400 truck. I'm just telling you, like it loves it there.
Well, it's interesting because, again, it's like you look at the evolution of the Herps chassis, and they were, they're Vegas boys, right? And so a lot of their testing was done on the Mint course, North course and South course. So it makes sense, that they would build a vehicle that is good at the rough stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, floating a trophy truck across the whoops at nearly 100 miles an hour spec, but it is just incredible. And so when you get that setup that just does it so well, because we do the pre-run lap the day before, and you're not going race pace, you're going good. And so you're like, oh man, this is going to be tough. And then you get in that race, and you're chasing that guy's right there, and you just hold it on a little more than you did the day before. And you're like, and it just soaks it up. Like they want to go fast. They want to go hard.
Honestly, I feel like it's magic. Like it's one of those things. Like I try and describe to people why unlimited trucks are so special, and until they either ride in one or they can witness it going through that stuff, and even witnessing going it through that stuff, you can't comprehend it until you're in the car, right? Because like one of the sections that we have thumpers. Like we go stand in those holes, they're 4 feet deep, 5 feet deep, some of them, right? And, when you try and explain to people that like, no, the cab isn't going to move when it goes over that at 100 miles an hour, people are like, huh?
Yeah.
They can't comprehend it. And even when people see it from the outside, and we've got some really amazing heli shots of the trucks just dancing through that. Most people look at that and they're like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, no, that's 3 feet of travel that wheel is traveling at 100 miles an hour. And if you went and stood in those holes, you're halfway up, to your waist, right? It's just incredible. I love sharing it with people, especially when you can give them a ride and they get out of the car and they're just baffled. It's a holy shit moment, but it's also like their brain can't comprehend what just happened. It takes a while to soak it all in.
I think that's one of the coolest things that I get to do every once in a while is take someone who hasn't been in one of these before, because we get really jaded, right? We do it all the time, and doing it for so many years that you just, I'm real nitpicky. I'm like, yeah, it was good, but it could be a little better, sure. But anybody who wouldn't know, like, thinks it's the greatest thing ever. So doing, before the Mint, you guys we do some VIP rides with some of the sponsors. And so we've done that with BFG the last couple of years. And I think last year was the coolest thing of this guy gets out of the truck and goes, I had no idea that's what this tire does. He's like, I personally build these tires in the shop every day myself. I did not know it did this. And so I was like, I just want you to understand, I'm putting all my faith in what you do, that this is going to hold. And he was just blown away. And it's cool to see it from a different lens, because, we don't get to do that very often.
No, you're totally right. It's interesting because being a cinematographer, we're observing the trucks all the time and the tires and what they're doing. And over the last few years, when we start developing slow motion technology, and then we can really slow it down and see, what's happening to the tire. It's pretty incredible what the tires will go through and survive. Like there's stuff out there that I'm like, I remember when we first took over the Mint and we were going around the course, and I'm like, we can't go through this. Everybody's gonna get a flat here. And I remember talking to Frank D'Angelo actually, and he's like, that's not even the real rock garden. The real rock garden is over here. And we went and found it, and it's like all square edged, everything. And it's almost like you couldn't design a more dangerous course for tires, right? Although I will say, the Barstow course, there's a couple sections where there's embedded rock that I think is a little bit worse than what we have out at the Mint, but it's not like the Mint where it's continuous, right?
Yeah.
It's just like there's one section, and then it's, dirt, and it's graded, a bit, and there's multiple lines. Whereas the Mint, like you can't really step out. You got to stay in the rough stuff. And passing is really risky.
Yeah. No, the Nevada desert in general is just, it's lined with rocks. And so trying to dodge all that. And I think that was probably one of the, I don't know if it was the toughest learning curve, but one of the learning curves getting into trucks is just knowing how hard you can push those rocks. Cause you don't want a flat. You can't afford a flat in this class. It's so competitive.
No, you're out of the top 5.
Yeah. You slip so fast. So yeah, just knowing how hard. And so I push crazy, and then you get to your tire change and you change and you're like, how are the tires? And they're like, oh, look great. And I'm like, really? Like, that's crazy. Do you know how hard I was going through this stuff? And the technology is just incredible. And I mean, I think BFG's the best tire out there, and that's why we've chosen to race with them. And even before they supported us, but it's mind blowing what they can do.
Yeah. What was it like making that transition? So you got a little taste of racing trucks, with other people for a season. So you were like 4 races in before you bought your truck. How many races in?
I think 3 or 4, not many.
And so then when you made that jump from class 10 up to spec truck, what was that like?
Well, I tell you, initially I didn't want to do it because at the time, 10 and spec was really close. They didn't separate like they are now with the 40s and the 525. So initially I was kind of not sure, and backing up, like when I bought the Jimco, I had never driven a Jimco. I didn't test it. So I learned from that experience going, this investment's so big. I'm like, I'm not going to purchase a truck by you telling me it's the best truck on the market. And what do you know? You haven't driven them all. I'm like, I need to drive it. So I talked to a couple of manufacturers, and they didn't have options for that available. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not doing this then. And talked to Mike Smith, and I think Joe Brain was gracious enough at that time to let me go out, and Ryan Millen took me for a lap, and then they let me drive it. And I was like, all right, I think I can win in this. Like, I felt comfortable and good with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's funny, all trucks I sat in, there's something about the Herbst truck just fits me.
Sure.
Like it feels like a perfect glove. Not saying you can't make another cab feel good. There's something the way that it felt good. Like it was right.
It's funny because it's like this running joke between me and Brian Harold from Fox is I'm always using this phrase like people don't know, right? And I think one of the bad things about our culture and generationally is like they're bad self-promoters, right? And for whatever reason, whether they're just they don't care about that ego part of it or whatever, but like the amount of knowledge in the Herp shop is, like you were saying, is incredible. I mean, it's not just Mike Smith. It's all the other guys, Arciero now, a lot of the guys in the shop, like it's a really long, Todd, it's a really long list. But what's interesting is, to your point, is there was a point where Mike was reaching out to all these, engineers and people from different racing disciplines, and he would go to a NASCAR race and go to a NHRA race, and he would look and go, well, why isn't their transmission braking? What are they doing? Right. And then he would have that guy come over and, tell him what they're doing wrong or sell him a product, and he would try it. Right. So like, it's easy now to look at it and be like, oh yeah, their trucks are badass. The amount of time and knowledge and money that's distilled down into making that perfect spec chassis. And I mean, if you look at the numbers now, it's like, I know Brenthel, it has, turned out a lot of volume as well. And they have, a lot of success in the spec class, but like, yeah, their program is top notch,
Well, yeah, and obviously because of my history with them, like I know the inside of that. And I mean, I was a kid handing Todd wrenches. So, I mean, I know Todd and some of the guys that are still working around there that, I worked with their side by side back in the day. So that was very comforting and easy for me. But you're right. I mean, back in those days, they were the cream of the crop, and obviously they've had a resurgence with the kids coming up and just the level of, they went through some tough years with the other trucks that they had built, and I think they're back up there on top, and they've known how to do it, like just the platform that they built. And one thing that's really special about this truck is the level of care that they put into building it that made it easy to work on.
Yeah.
And that's a big, you talk to anybody who's prepped one of these trucks, just they say how easy it is and to go together. Cause that seems to like old school, like that was like the afterthought. You just build it how you needed to build it.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't easy to take it apart. I mean, I remember working on a truck one time helping, and you'd have to cut the bolts out with a Sawzall to get the front arms off the truck or something weird like that. And you're just like, this is dumb, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like that.
I've seen trucks that they have to cut off. Tubing to get the engine out.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean.
What
like
are we doing?
Yeah. Again, that's knowledge. You know. What's interesting to me about their evolution is I had Arciero in here a while ago, and we talked about it a little bit. But like the thing I was bummed we didn't really emphasize is that because Ryan has had this experience in IndyCar and these other forms of racing, and his whole family has. I mean, they're racing legacy. So he grew up, seeing the highest level of performance in auto racing in the United States. And he's like, guys, that's how we should do it. You know what I mean? And so I think he's brought that, level or helped them even step up even further. And they have an amazing facility. It's in Huntington. If you're an off-road fan, I mean, I don't want to spam them with a bunch of people, but like it is a wet dream shop right there.
It's crazy because back in the day, if you had one trophy truck, you were cool.
Yeah.
You were something. Now it's like if you don't have two, you're like, okay, whatever. Like, and to walk into a building that is housing over 10, 15 trucks, it's mind blowing because you just never saw that before, right? And yeah, it's incredible, and it's a machine, and they've got, they pull it together every single time, and they don't let us down. Like as a customer, I mean, I've obviously been extremely happy with the product that we race, and then just their support is they're always there. I mean, San Felipe 2022, we qualified and blew reverse. Didn't know it. Brady was prepping the truck and the night before, or whatever, goes to back in the garage, put it away for the night, and reverse is gone. And so we call Todd and we're like, dude, I need a tranny. Like I didn't have one at the time. And they gave us a trans, and, just the level of support to make sure that we were always getting to the finish line has always been appreciated. And those guys are just super solid.
Yeah. I think especially when you go race Baja, it's a weird paradigm where you've spent all this money in this effort to get there. And there's a game of economics of racing multiple vehicles and having multiple support vehicles and so on that works better than just having, your own program, right? It's staff. And then it's like you can have all the staff. And I don't know how many times I've been down, with teams or just observing, and they don't know basics about logistics of Baja. Like, hey, if you don't leave now, right, you're going to be stuck in 2 hours of traffic trying to get out of town. So you have to, compensate for that. And oh, by the way, like now it's a little bit easier because there's more gas stations, but it used to be like you fill up in Ensenada and the next gas station is San Felipe, right? Now it's a little bit more periodic, and then timing and where you should have parts and having enough spares. That's the thing is like, I learned it racing predominantly with the McMillans is like, they were always like, they knew if you have a problem here and you don't have this part, you're done. So let's make sure we have that there. And then once we get through that point, move and go down here because that's the next problem area. So just having all those logistics handled for you lets you focus on racing, right?
Yeah. The McMillans are one of the best for sure. I mean, they know every single road in, out, everywhere. But just having parts and spares, and it's funny. I think, not to keep going back in the day, but these trucks used to never survive, right? No. Like you couldn't almost get through a race without 10 flats or changing a trans once or twice, right?
Sure.
Now these trucks are so good. Yeah, you can't hiccup with a flat because the tires are so good and the chassis are so good and the parts are so good. So I've almost in some ways shifted my mentality to win or break because if you're changing parts or things like that, if you're in a championship chase, that's one thing, but you pretty much count on these trucks like to survive. And we don't seem to carry the spare parts that we used to. which catches you at times, right? Obviously before an event, but once we're in it, it's like, man, what are we doing if we're not winning and we're going to finish 15th? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
That's kind of the philosophy we've taken. But so I believe you win and lose races in the shop. How hard, what the level of your prep is going to dictate it's at that point, it's up to me, right? I'm the guy who's going to either win it or make a mistake, is the way I try to put it in.
Sure. No, it makes sense. And, I would also offer too that like the level of competition and capability now is so high. You go back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and, trophy truck racing or even spec racing, like there were only a handful of teams who had good equipment and good prep, right? Now everybody has it. And now you have the ability to walk into a shop like Herbst and say, or Brenthal or somebody else and say, I want to buy a truck. I want you guys to support it. I'll see you at the race, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they handle everything for you. And, I think that's a huge asset to our culture, because figuring out once you hit a certain level, it's hard to get all your friends to show up and support you.
Totally.
Right. And you're just not operating at the same level. Right. So having that top level of support, I think, is really clutch, and the other thing too, I tell it to people all the time that come in and, they want a nickel and dime stuff. And I'm like, you're going to spend the night in the desert instead of racing. Right.
Totally.
Like, so what do you want to do? What are you here for? If you're here to race, spend the money, make sure that you have the support and the equipment and the prep to complete the race. If you make a mistake, that's on you, but at least I'm good for 400 miles or 600 miles or 500 miles, however long the race is. Spend the money, do it with the right people. Don't get swindled into like, well, this guy Bob, he kind of can prep stuff and blah, blah. I mean, I remember I've seen so many things like that where I remember looking at a class 1 car and looking at how the transmission was bolted on wrong. And I'm not a mechanic. And I'm like, hey, you need to show that to somebody who knows what they're doing, because that's wrong. That you're already leaking oil, right? You can't start a race like that. You're going to go 20 miles, smoke the transmission, and not have a race. So you've spent whatever, 50 grand getting to this race. And, that's a $50,000 transmission or whatever. So you're 100 grand into bad decisions here,
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people led down those paths. And so, if you don't get a good mentor coming into this sport, you can be led a lot of wrong directions and either have a good experience or a bad experience, right? There's quite a few of those stories that are out there. And it's funny, we all penny pinch in the shop, but the minute you're at the race, you'll write a check for anything. Or if I'm broke in the desert, like you saved $1,000 on that part because you didn't change it or didn't have something looked at, but you're going to spend 10 times in the middle of nowhere if you could just write a check right there and be back in the race. So it's so backwards. But
yeah, it's like there needs to be like the mobile mechanic that you could just swipe your card. Like, hey, you want to keep going? Swipe your card.
Like a video game. Buy more lives.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be awesome. But so speaking of mentorship, was there somebody that mentored you that kind of guided you through your career?
Definitely my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, CJ and MacCachren, getting to ride with them for as many years as I did. And CJ is a phenomenal driver, and back to the same thing, started in 1600 car. My father-in-law started in Broncos back way back. So they had that momentum mentality. So yeah, their experience was huge for me. And when I transitioned from the right seat to the left seat, it was like there's so many things that I did where I would, make a transition from this set of whoops to that set. And it was just like, oh, I've seen this so many times. I just know how to do it.
Right.
Of course, there's still a learning curve in itself being on the left side, but they were huge. Obviously, guys like Biscuit, who just used to work in the shops with him after hours after Herps. We met at Herps. He prepped a bunch of cars, and so he became my mechanic on 1600 car, and still to this day in our pits. And so, a bunch of guys that just been around a long time and gave me a lot of a lot of tips and advice. And, and it's like you get one little morsel of information every race. I remember the first time I learned how to dump the clutch in 1600 off the start line, showing up to like a battle prim and you're 4 wide. And I would always get smoked off the line. And I don't know, one year they taught me, all right, here's how this works. You rev it up and dump the clutch. I'm like, and it worked. And, we're jumping guys off the start. I'm like, how did nobody tell me this before?
Right.
So there's a lot to learn in this sport. And again, you've been doing it so long, you kind of forget about all those little things. And it's a pretty tall order to learn. And, now you got these guys jumping straight into a spec. You're like, dude, that's a lot. Like, yeah, it's a big steep hill to learn.
Yeah, it's funny because, we deal with it where people call us up and they're like, hey, I want to race them in a truck. And, I'm like, well, what's your experience? And I'm usually trying to steer them into a UTV, but they don't like the aesthetic of a buggy, right? They wanted to race a truck. And I get it. And, it's still a big, tall task, to just step into a spec truck and just drive it, drive it around and understand what it does and what it's capable of. So I still don't recommend that to people. But yeah, it's one of the cool things about our culture is that anybody can race anything at any time, but it's also one of the kind of, bad things about our culture of like, going backwards from trophy truck or unlimited truck. It's like an unlimited truck is like an F-16. You're like, here you go. It's armed. Don't die. You know what I mean? And it's not a good idea. It's, 1,000 horsepower, 36 inches of wheel travel. Like it is a whole unbelievable beast in itself. Then you back down to, spec, and it's basically the same thing, just half the horsepower.
Yeah.
It's still a lot. So, I still recommend people try and be patient, come up with the ladder system. And especially to your point, like learn how to drive momentum cars, right? Because that teaches you, how to take lines properly, how to corner properly, all these things, and not rely solely on horsepower. And then once you have the horsepower, then you're like, cool, man, now I know where and when to use this. And, you don't end up being one of these guys who's just driving out of the lines all the time and smashing the crap out of your vehicle and getting flats and damaging the vehicle, which there's a lot of. It's the desert. There's a lot of things that can end your day. And most of them are outside of the primary lines, right? So it's interesting to see that evolution. For you, obviously, you're a full-time business person with your construction business and successful with that. What makes you keep doing this?
That's a really funny question. Only because it's ironic. Because I've been questioning that a lot lately. A lot of things have been changing internally with our team. Brady, who's been our lead guy for 4 or 5 years, is moving out of state. He's going to move back up north to Nevada. And so, we're changing dynamics internally and sponsorships changing, things like that. So, yeah, you wonder that. I mean, I'll tell you, the Mid 400, I haven't won that one. So that's definitely a driver for sure. But yeah, you wonder how much is enough. But, talking yesterday with a buddy, that it's like, there's so many good times and so many cool experiences and late nights in the middle of Baja that, a buddy rolls up and, you couldn't plan to be at the same spot at the same time, but somehow, ironically, we end up in the same little dinky hotel and you tell stories for hours and stuff like that. And just all the cool experiences. Like it's something that's hard to shake. Like it's in your blood and it's a crazy addiction, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny because like I've talked to a lot of different people and asked them that same question and lots of different answers. But one of them is like, once you get to a certain level with this, it's not something you can just put away and go like, oh, I'm going to go golf or whatever. And that's going to replace off-road racing. Right.
I tell everybody, right, because I do play a decent amount of golf. And I joked, I'm like, I'm not that good at golf yet, but I'm still good at racing. Like I'm still winning. I'm still in front. Like, it's hard to give up. I almost wish I was a 5th to 10th place racer. And I guess it'd be easier. Like, oh, okay, let's do something else. But
yeah,
I love it because again, I've worked so hard for so long and dreamed about being at this level. And arguably, there's still a trophy truck that I haven't done anything with per se. But for me, it's hard to justify that step. If there's an opportunity to race with someone else, I would love to do it. But But we're racing these spec trucks, like we're going pretty dang fast through the desert. Like I'm not really worried about like, I need a couple more 100 horsepower. Like there's times in soft stuff, but we're ripping, like we're going fast.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the excitement for me is there, and I'm pretty content with that. I'm in a truck and we're going pretty quick through the desert, but, yeah, I don't know. Not really sure what keeps going. It's just, you just do it. Like you love it. And like I said, we're good at it. So, and it's hard because we're like that mom and pop team. We show up very professional. Like it's one thing that's important to me. And, you know, if we show up to a race, like we race less races currently just because I want to put my full effort and make sure that we're coming to win. We could race more and, you know, maybe halfway do the prep or something. It's like, I don't want to chance that. So we're kind of at that teetering point of like stepping up, adding more people to the team, that, you know, the management and stuff, because it's harder for me to try to herd the team and do all the logistics and stuff. And, so that weighs on me in that sense.
Sure.
So it's like, do we step up and be more professional and hire more people? And it's a snowball effect, right? Like,
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, man, I love it. And, you know, as stressful as it is to get to an event and then you come out and you have a good result and like, man, that's cool. And so Monday, Tuesday, it's hard to get back into work and get your mind off race and get focused on work again. Right.
Yeah. I mean, for you, like in doing this, what do you think your favorite part about this whole thing is?
Winning, right? Like, it's funny because, you know, my wife always tells me when I'm going testing and stuff and I'm leaving for the day and I say goodbye, she's like, you can do your favorite thing today. She always reminds me, she knows how much I love it. And it really is, as much as I could say, I could hang that up, whatever, I'll go play some golf. Every time I get back in that thing, it's like, man, these are incredible. Like that is so amazing. So it's just, I think the experience is just unreal. It's unlike anything else, you know, and you can go pavement racing and all that stuff, which I think is awesome in its own right, but there's nothing like putting a truck over some whoops and, what it does. Yeah,
it's different. It's really funny because I have a friend, who, you know, I've been taking out just riding, not even racing. And he's a big pavement racer. Right. And, you know, he's literally at the point now where he's like, I would rather spend hours in the desert in a UTV than racing my BMWs, like the bang for the buck. And just the mental part of it, like the serenity that it gives you. And, you know, it's funny because like, I remember asking Scott McMillan about this, you know, like why do you love this so much? And he gave me a lot of answers, but one of them was his businessman answer, right? I call it. And he was like, Matt, this is the only time where nobody can call me, right? I'm not worried about accounting or the next business deal or these things. I just have to focus on what is going on right now in front of me. And, you know, it also happens that, you know, we're not racing on like the industrial environment of a racetrack. We're racing out in this just glorious, beautiful, you know, nature. And whether it's in Baja or the Mojave Desert, it's like people have no idea because they're driving by on the freeway and they're like, there's some trash and there's some blah, blah, especially the mint course. Cause like, I remember my first time on the backside of that course, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. There's like, you know, bighorn sheep running around and coyotes and, you know, just beautiful cactus everywhere and Joshua trees and stuff. And I'm like, this is like a photograph in a Nat Geo book or something, right? And we get to race through this.
It's hard sometimes because we don't get to appreciate, you know, in Baja, you're pre-running, you know, obviously we don't get to do that level of pre-running here in the States, but sometimes you can stop and kind of take it in, but we're so focused on the course and trying to make our notes that, you know, we miss appreciating some of it sometimes. So it's hard.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, yeah, you catch it like, dang, this is cool. Like, and, it's changed a lot, you know, and obviously with the pavement in Baja, there were some areas where we would race down dirt roads that, you know, you couldn't get there without, you know, one of these vehicles and stuff. But yeah, it is pretty rad, the terrain that we get to go over and to just go from one mountain range to the next it can change so fast. And, you know, it all looks like just some boring desert, but it's not.
No, in Baja, it's remarkable because, you know, within 50 miles, you might go beach, mountains, desert, right?
Yeah, totally.
And everybody's like, again, I think in everybody's head, it's like, oh, we're out racing in this like flat desert, right? And it's the terrain is completely radically different. So
The first time I did the Baja 1000 in 2004, we were pre-running in what was like a 12 car. I remember turning down Old Perseus Road, and as far as you could see, it was whoops. And I'm thinking to myself, remember, I'm a new racer. Like, I've never really been on a lot of race course. They're going to turn us off at some point. There's no way we go down this, right? Yeah. Like, and it was just endless for I forget how many miles, and you're just like, holy smokes, like this is wild. You know? It's gnarly. Like it is pretty crazy. So, and there's only a handful of people that you can explain that to. Yeah, they don't. You know, arguably we do this for ourselves. You know, when you talk about what keeps kind of driving you, like it's me and the guy in the seat are getting the best experience, right? I say the next best seat is a helicopter because you're gonna sort of experience what we're doing, but the stories. But now with the live stream and stuff, like the things that people can experience that we're experiencing at the same time is crazy.
It's funny because I've been in each different seat. And of course, you know, the best seat is the driver's seat, right? But I've also had some unbelievably great times chasing, you know, and, you know, driving a chase truck or riding in the chase truck. And, you know, you actually get to see a lot because you're posted up in remote areas waiting for people. You're getting to areas. And if you're smart, you're giving yourself time to get to those areas so you can, you know, enjoy the process, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty cool experience too, just to share with like a group of your friends or family from the support side. I do it, you know, now as a promoter with our volunteers, and it's pretty funny because like, you know, we're asking a lot of them. But like, you know, this year I had to go pick up some generators from the furthest point in Parker. And, you know, I get out there and you know, I'm trying to get stuff done. So the race is over. I'm like, all right, it's cleanup time. I have this long list of things that me and the entire team have to do, and some unbelievable volunteers that are pretty much like run by a couple guys, John Savino and Jason Pritchard. But I go out to this remote pit, and the guys that were out there manning that pit are in an RV. And so they were asleep. It was still early in the morning, and I'm making a bunch of racket, getting this generator shut off and loaded onto the truck. And they immediately come out and they're like, hey, don't do anything. We got this. And they start doing everything for me. And I'm like, how'd it go? And they're like, man, we had a blast. And I'm like, good. And, you know, and where they were set up too, I could tell like these guys were seasoned because that, you know, they had set up their camp, so they had the view and all this stuff. And it's just a beautiful area of you know, of the desert. And if you enjoy that, then you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly how you pull all your volunteers, but when we broke 2 years ago, it's a couple of military guys that were from, I think, Northwest or something. And they walk, you know, it's funny when you break in the desert, you think you're alone, and all of a sudden someone walks up, and it's always a trip. But they lend a hand and start talking to them like, yeah, we've never been, wanted to come, and we came out here to volunteer, and, you know, they put us out here, and just, yeah, they're stoked. Like, it's awesome because we couldn't do half of what we do without the volunteers, right? Not on the motor side, not on the racing side. So, yeah, that's needed. That enthusiasm, you know, those kids that were like me, want to push a broom, like, we need more of that, like, coming up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the volunteers are amazing, and you know, whether it's with us or in Baja, it's funny because like I have a lot of Mexican friends that I've met because I was filming in Baja, and you know, they're volunteered for SCORE at the time, and they're like, "Hey, do you need a water?" I'm like, "No, I got a water," you know, and then we start talking and became friends. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, tons of crazy experiences like that. You know, you could go down the line of all the volunteers, like I said, that have helped you, you know, getting broke. Like I spent one night in the desert, 1,000 in the middle of nowhere, and I think it was like Locos Mocos or something, comes and finds us, pulls us to their pit, and sit next to a fire and hang out. And I mean, we're on a very remote part of the peninsula, and not only couldn't we do it without it, but just like you're like, thank God someone is out here some of these times, because otherwise it's very lonely.
Those guys are great. I was it was like early in the morning, and we were filming for team, and we were down past Gro Negro, and we just gotten word via relay that the vehicle that we were shooting broke, right? So we're, I think we're 200 miles south of where the vehicle broke, right? So we're like, oh man, and it's like, I think it was like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'd gone to the local smokers pit, and we said, hey, did this car come through? And nope, sat there for an hour. And so the guy goes, hey, do you want me to call status on it just to be sure? So he calls status to weatherman. We get the news, and we're like pretty bummed, right? Because we thought we were going all the way down the peninsula. Like, now we got to drive home, and it's kind of like, we know that the edit is going to be, hey, we broke, right? It's not going to be a good time. Client's not going to be stoked. And I'm sitting there kind of getting ready to like load our cameras back up into the truck and leave. And the guy looks at me, he goes, hey, do you want a margarita? And I'm like, yeah. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. We sat there, and he had a margarita mixer hooked up to the generator, and he made us margaritas. And so we sat there for a couple hours, and then we headed back. But lots of really good people that help, all over the place in off-road racing. Pretty cool. For you, has there been a race that you just like, hey man, I love this race. This is my thing?
I've said it for a long time before I started winning it. With Vegas to Reno, I really like, and to the earlier point of chasing and the excitement. When I built the 10 car, the first race I did was Vegas to Reno, and I did it for a reason, because we had been off hiatus for a little while. And so I think there's probably not a better race to chase from the experience and the excitement. There's 15 pits, and you can hit 13 of them, I think.
Yeah, and you're boogieing the whole time.
Yeah, there's no time between. We're going 100 miles and they're going 40, but we're going to beat up very similar timing. Sometimes you're literally slamming into the pits and the door's open and the half leg out, right? So it's funny because you get to the finish line, and arguably that course is a lot of fire roads. It's not super rough. It's no mint. It's nothing crazy, but very fast and not super eventful,
right,
per se. Washouts and things. So I guess we pass a lot of guys because either they got flats or they've made a mistake or something like that. So you make passes, not necessarily passing at speed, but you say you start fifth or whatever, and then you're third, and then you're second, then you're first or whatever. And the team, each pit is just so elated that you're moving up.
Yeah.
And they're high-fiving. So they get down and they're like, oh, you were there, and then you're here, and then this and that. So their stories throughout the day, I look forward to finishing that race to just hear what they experience, because they're in their own race to beat me to the next spot, to fuel us or whatever, or just be there for us. So, because, some of these, Baja 1000, the Baja 2000, I saw the truck for 35 seconds or whatever in the pit in the midst of a 36-hour race, because I was in one spot way down deep. So for them to just kind of be in this whole thing every day or the whole day is I think super fun. So I know they're having as much fun as I am in their own right. So I do like that.
Yeah, Vegas to Reno is interesting to me. It's always been I liked the race. I like the last section the most, because it's the most interesting in terms of racing. But the area that we're going through, like, you would never drive through that area unless there was a race. Totally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you go through these weird mining towns and, ghost towns, and, there's the clown motel and, next to a graveyard. Right. And so you're seeing all these kind of sites, and if you're paying attention, like, there's a lot of interesting and cool stuff there, right? A lot of actual history of the United States, in that area. And I think it's, it's still the Wild West, right? And it's cool to reflect on it and be like, man, like, our ancestors had to get through that to come over here and be like, oh, California. It's like, everybody's like, oh, California, it's great. It's like, yeah, you had to go through all this, this nightmare to get here. Right. But there are some really cool sections of that race course, and there's also like variables that, like, the heat is always an issue, right? Vapor locking vehicles and just everything overheating. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen at that race, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's this like mental challenge of like, hey, you're high speed. You might be high speed for 30 or 40 minutes, and then there's a giant G out, right?
Yeah.
So it's this mental game of like staying in mode, staying focused for long periods of time, and then going, okay, I got to change my mode here, right? So I think it's cool. It's a very different style race than any other race we have in the U.S. And there is cool terrain out there.
Well, to your point, 100 miles an hour to a G out, yeah, and guys have made that wrong mistake and
or
ripped corners off or something.
Yeah.
But remember, Rick, we don't see that for a year. We don't pre-run it. We don't play on it. We don't race another race on it. You could say, hey, the Mint's got a couple other events out there. Or San Felipe, there's other events that are racing. Like, no one touches that for a year. So,
right.
And we've had years where crazy downpours. First time I raced that spec truck, it's the craziest. I still can't figure out why, but I got on a line early on in the race, and it was like a dry lake bed, and all of a sudden, there's just gallons of water pouring over my hood. I got into the lake bed, and I don't. We're supposed to be looking as far ahead as we can. I just don't remember and realize how I ended up driving straight into like a lake, and I just kept my foot in the gas because I'm like, I'm gonna get stuck if I don't. But it felt like we were drowning. It was crazy. It just came out of nowhere, but I wasn't prepared because I didn't. If I would have pre-ran, you would have, Mark, be over there, right? So yeah, there's a lot of things that can get you real fast, and that course for sure. If you step off even just an inch, you're into rocks and you're tearing stuff up. So it's cool. And then I know you guys been working on a race up Northern Nevada, and the fans up there I think are cool and they're hungry for it because you get towards that finish line, and it's every year that's been growing the last few years that just everyone's out there in the UTVs and just rooting us on and watching, and so it's a really cool and by far one of the best finish lines in racing because you get a jump, and you're 100 miles an hour and jumping down a drop off there, and so it's just a really cool feeling to finish that one for sure.
Yeah, no, it's that the last part of Vegas to Reno is really fun, like through the mountains and everything. And there's a lot of really good stuff up there, so we're hoping to do something up there. But yeah, I mean, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about too is like you've always done a really good job of showing up to the races and looking professional, right? Like, where did that come from? Was that from your time with the Herps that you got that kind of impression or?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of guys who show up, to the races, and you're looking at them, and you're like, did you ever look at your truck before? You know what I mean? Everybody's wearing mismatching stuff, and like I also understand there's a cost to it, but I, for one, as a fan, as a promoter, like I really appreciate, when teams show up and they look professional. It's better for us to sell. It's better for us to drive sponsorship towards them. Not to cut you off, but I remember, back in the day when, Alan Pfluger rolled out and everybody's like, oh, these guys all have the same shorts. They have the same shirt. They have the same hat. They look like a team. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from for you guys?
Probably a little bit different. I would say I've probably struggled a little bit in that aspect recently. It's, I focus so much on the truck in a lot of ways, but, for sure, I want my equipment to look good. To me, this is my Ferrari. I don't have a Ferrari at home. So, I want it all to be professional. I want it to be clean. And I've always just felt like, hey, if we do this right, if you go to our shop, like it's as professional as it gets for, we've got all the list of cabinets and just really nice stuff that I want to be attracting and ready for that sponsor, that if there's that opportunity comes up, hey, this is a team we want to invest in, because they do it right. So it probably comes from the drive of just looking the part and being ready if that ever comes along, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, it's something that I always respect, and it takes an additional extra amount of effort to show up and look professional, mm-hmm. and I for one appreciate it.
Yeah, because our sport is a mix of all that stuff, right? So, the guys that I think do it right, and you get to the level of those top tier classes. I don't care if it's UTV or trophy truck or unlimited. You got to look the part. You got to do it right, and then, like I said, those opportunities with partnerships, I think, attract themselves if you've kind of got all that right recipe.
Sure, no, 100%. So future, right? Like what do you have left to do in this? I mean, I know we were talking earlier, and like you're looking for a call from trophy truck teams to race with them, but in your class, like I know the Mint's one of those ones you've got to click off. But what do you hope to accomplish in the future?
I think I'd like to get probably back to some sort of championship run. It's been such a thing for a lot of years to pick and choose stuff. I'm also in a season of life with the kids growing up, and we're in a lot of soccer tournaments and things. So, time is a little less than I'd like. But we toy with that idea of, we have the 2-wheel drive unlimited stuff now that you're like, oh, what if I did this and maybe just a little more horsepower? And look at where we're finishing in the overall now. You're like, you wonder what you could do. So I think there's a lot of options on the table as far as what happens there. Still young enough to want to keep doing it, and I think we can do some stuff that's cool. But probably a Baja 1000. I've never ran it as my own. I've been fortunate to win it as a part of the coastal team. Those guys became good friends.
Kigers, yeah.
But that's a crazy story in itself. That's what I love about Baja or just racing in general is I think less than 4 weeks before the race they called me and said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I wasn't doing anything," and we jumped on a call, and I had never met him before. I'd only raced against him. I'd never even talked to them.
Yeah.
And, obviously that's what's cool about racing is you respect each other based on how you finish and how you carry yourself and probably how you look and all those things that we talked about. And so they called me out of the blue and put it together. And I think that was their first Peninsula run. And so, I'd raced a few before and coached them through some thoughts and ideas. And, we just kind of clicked right away and went out and won it the first year and then won it the second year. And just like, dang, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So had a great time with those guys. And so I've been fortunate to be a part of some other wins, just not under my name and which is totally cool. I'm totally fine with it. Like, to me, it's about racing and about getting to drive these awesome machines and the team effort. So, it's like my name doesn't have to be on that trophy, but being a part of it is pretty cool. So, probably more Baja 1000 rides. And, like I said, the Mint is one that I haven't clicked off yet. That best I've done, I think, is second in my 1600 car. And I sold that, by the way. That was probably a dumb decision. After the fact, that hurt so much. But I've just always been about trying to win and championships and things like that. And it's just making sure we can do it at a top level is important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. Well, hey, man, thank you for coming and doing this with me. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.